Next, I'd like to introduce Michael Wonsidler. He's a program manager with the County of San Diego, and he's going to talk about a recent project that he's worked on or led. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First off, thank you to Jan and the organizers for holding this symposium. It's extremely valuable, and we're happy to be a part. So our program is responsible for achieving the county's goals of 75% waste diversion from landfill by 2025 and 80% by 2030. And common to all cities and counties in California, we are required to implement the landmark legislation SB 1383. If you've not heard of this paradigm-changing law, it sets an aggressive goal to reduce the landfill disposal of organic materials like wood, landscape trimmings, and food waste 75% by 2025 statewide. And this is in order to help the state meet its climate goals. So with these new rules, there will be a push of organic materials out of the landfill. However, there also needs to be greater awareness of the value of processed materials like compost and mulch, as you've heard here today, to help us create and expand demand in potential markets. So with that in mind, the county has hired a consultant to help us conduct a compost and mulch market study to evaluate the size of the opportunity, the sectors most suited to compost and mulch products, determine the size of the current market sectors, how large these markets might become, and recommendations to help us realize this potential. So the larger goal of this project is to take the results of this study and to create a marketing plan to encourage greater use of compost and mulch. With that, I'd like to introduce our consultant on this project from the team at Hidden Resources, Tyla Montgomery-Soylu, will be presenting some of the highlights from our study. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So I'm going to quickly give a high level. Okay, why am I not? There we go. It's a little delayed. All right, so essentially what we were looking at is the supply and demand of compost and mulch and diverting these materials from landfills as mandated, as Mike mentioned. So we took a look initially at the infrastructure to process materials. And we identified that we have about 1.1 million tons of permitted capacity to produce compost and mulch at our local facilities in the San Diego region. And we also learned that they're only producing currently about 300,000 tons of materials. So when we're looking at an infrastructure need or identified where these capacity potential gaps lie, we're seeing that there is probably additional room in our existing facilities to process organic materials and produce even more compost and mulch. And as a region, we're currently developing, or we're currently producing about 1.7 million tons of organic materials and sending those materials to the landfills. And if we were to achieve the statewide mandate of 75%, or the statewide goal, I'm sorry, of 75% diversion by 2025 of those materials, we'll be looking at a 1.25 million tons of compostable materials being processed, potentially into compost and mulch. And what's interesting for this group is simply by, all right, this doesn't want to, but it's about 700, I don't know why this is happening, 700,000 metric tons of CO2 emissions avoided from landfills, which is a lot of cars, 1.8 million cars taken off the road. I don't know why this is happening. Alrighty, so that was the supply side. So we've identified we are potentially going to have a glut of compost and mulch supply. Who are the end users of these products? And are we going to find homes for all of this compost and mulch? And so that's what we looked at in this study. Who's buying the product? And essentially what we see here, and this is a very simplistic graph, there's much detail behind these numbers. Sectors, subsectors, but essentially what we're seeing here is we're seeing the agriculture and rangeland or our rural buyers of compost and mulch, the orange and yellow, and the green is the landscape and stormwater control industries, which is essentially the urban buyers and who the compost facilities and the mulch sell to. So we're looking at a current compost sales of 158,000 cubic yards, a potential significant growth potential to sell even more compost, primarily to the urban users, some growth potential to the agricultural users. So the agricultural users are users of compost. However, relative to who's buying compost from our local facilities, it's the urban users who are buying compost. And similar to mulch, it's the urban users who are buying mulch from our local facilities. And so this information will be useful when we're identifying a marketing plan, who we want to target, which end users, who needs the education, for example, the farmers. If we're convincing farmers to utilize more compost and mulch, then what does that messaging need to be? So wrapping up the recommendations identified in the study, investing in marketing development. So this is putting dollars in funding, either by agencies or the jurisdictions, in developing partnerships with the farmers and the businesses in developing this marketing plan. Developing the business case. So there's been several mentions of the cost of mulch and compost and applying it to the land. So what are the net savings, however, in water usage, pesticides, fertilizers, etc.? And what does that mean in the dollars and cents to the farmers and the other end users? Increased education and marketing to all sectors, several responders from our surveys and outreach to the users indicated that they're just not aware of the benefits in the mulch, and they have perceptions maybe that are not true or outdated. And then finally, procurement incentives for locally procured products from our permitted facilities. So specifying in development projects, this is particularly for the urban users, but specifying in development and construction projects that they use high quality materials that meet certain performance standards. And with that, I'm probably out of time, so I'm available in the chat box if anybody has questions. And thank you.
Thank you, Tyla.